This woman saved thousands of babies just by saying no. Sounds crazy, right? But behind her decision lies one of the darkest pharmaceutical tragedies in modern history. A story full of corporate greed and cruel fates. Today, we're diving deep into the so-called Thalidomide disaster. What happened? Why did Europe face a catastrophe while the United States narrowly escaped it? Sit back and grab a cup of tea. I personally recommend something calming. You'll need it. In the late 1950s, the world was still recovering from two devastating world wars. People's lives improved year after year. They started families and built lives for themselves, where stability became part of everyday life. Medicine was advancing rapidly. New breakthroughs, for example in antibiotics or vaccines, fundamentally changed the world of modern medicine. That led to, trust in pharmaceutical innovation being higher than ever. This is when the German company Chemie Grünenthal introduced a new product, Contergan, with its active substance Thalidomide. It was promoted as a gentle, safe, non-addictive sedative. At the time, most sleeping pills, especially so-called barbiturates, were highly addictive and dangerous. Since many barbiturates remained in the body for a very long time, regular use caused the level of active ingredient in the blood to rise and rise, until seemingly out of nowhere, an overdose occurred. This was not uncommon and deadly. So Thalidomide arrived at the perfect moment, marketed as non-addictive, safer alternative. It was said to help with insomnia, anxiety, and morning sickness during pregnancy. And it was aggressively marketed as safe for pregnant women. Animal studies showed no toxicity, overdoses appeared unlikely, and doctors trusted claims. Advertisements even suggested it was harmless enough for children. A miracle drug. Or so it seemed. Shortly after its release, doctors reported strange symptoms their patients were describing. Symptoms like tingling in hands and feet, numbness, and even partial paralysis. Those are early signs of nerve damage called peripheral neuropathy. Across Europe, infants were being born with severe limb deformities like extremely short arms or legs, or limbs completely missing. That's a rare condition called phocomelia. Still, Grünenthal denied any connection to their safe thalidomide. Between 1958 and 1961, the situation escalated dramatically. Over 5,000 babies were born with severe deformities. Worldwide, the number exceeded 10,000, likely far more, and some of them did not survive. Despite the growing evidence, thalidomide remained on the market, because, Grünenthal insisted the cause was unproven, so doctors continued prescribing it. What the patients didn't know was that their safe sedative they were taking was a teratogen substance, a substance capable of causing birth defects. To put it simply, if thalidomide is taken during the first 3 months of pregnancy, it has far-reaching effects on the development of the embryo. It inhibits the formation of blood vessels and causes the formation of a protein complex that controls, among other things, the morphogenesis of the limbs. As a result, newborns are being born with significant malformations of the limbs and/or internal organs. The turning point came from Australian obstetrician Dr. William McBride. He started noticing a pattern among mothers who had taken thalidomide and babies born with phocomelia. What Dr. William McBride describes here as phocomelia are exactly these malformations that we already discussed in Chapter 3. Alongside Dr. William McBride, German pediatrician and geneticist Dr. Widukind Lenz made independent observations linking thalidomide to birth defects. In 1961, Dr. William McBride wrote a letter to The Lancet, publicly linking the drug to birth defects. It was the scientific spark that posed the scandal to the public. In November 1961, Chemie Grünenthal finally withdrew Contergan from the market. But by then, the damage was done. In the United States, thalidomide came dangerously close to entering the market on a massive scale. The manufacturer pushed aggressively for approval, And even though the drug had not yet been officially authorized, doctors across the country had already received millions of samples. But why was the US spared? What happened differently here? Well, do you remember the first thing I said in the beginning of the video? It was her exceptional courage and her persistence that ultimately prevented the tragedy unfolding in the US. Her name? Dr. Frances Oldham Kelsey. She worked for the FDA during the late 1950s, and she spoke out against the approval of thalidomide in the USA. Kelsey noticed red flags immediately. Red flags like inconsistency in the data, questionable safety claims, and a complex lack of studies involving pregnant women. By refusing to bend under pressure and demanding real evidence, she prevented a tragedy for an entire nation before it even began. When the consequences of thalidomide surfaced overseas, it became clear that Kelsey's caution had spared the US from a similar fate. The impact of her actions reached the highest level of government. President John F. Kennedy himself publicly honored her for averting what could have resulted in tens of thousands of severe birth defects across the US, recognizing the magnitude of the disaster she had quietly prevented. Her stand led to major reforms in the US drug regulation and testing. In Germany, public outrage pushed the government and Chemie Grünenthal to finally confront the full extent of the catastrophe. In 1968, a massive trial began against Chemie Grünenthal that dragged on for more than 2 years. The company settled the case out of court and arrangements were made to compensate the victims. No one was found guilty of any crimes. However, there was criticism that victims in Italy, Spain and other countries received little or no compensation compared to German victims. Worldwide pharmacovigilance, the monitoring of drug safety, became the focus of attention. The thalidomide disaster changed the way medicines are regulated around the world. It led to stricter testing before approval, pregnancy-specific safety studies, clearer warnings, and much stronger surveillance. Ironically, thalidomide eventually returned decades later and is still in use today. In 2008, it re-entered the market under extremely strict regulations, even some of the toughest in pharmaceutical history. Its use is restricted to carefully monitored treatment programs today. The thalidomide disaster remains one of the worst medical tragedies of the 20th century, showing the world that no drug should be approved without solid scientific evidence and that testing and research must continue for as long as a drug is in use. It also showed how dangerous it is when profit takes precedence over safety. Because every medical decision affects real people, not numbers or statistics. And their protection must always come first. The story of thalidomide is also a story of a courageous woman who, despite all the difficulties, remained determined to fight for drug safety. If there is one thing we can learn from Dr. Frances Kelsey, it is sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is no.